guys? My name is Zack, and today I am driving a 1984 Chevrolet M1009. Up front is a 6.2-liter Detroit diesel V8, and down below is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be driving this essentially Blazer for one reason. It is military used. This was the military issued Chevrolet Blazer, and so there's a lot of cool things that go into it because of that. This truck has incredible history, and I'm just so excited to share that with you today. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But what the heck is this thing? Why is it called an M1009? Why isn't it just the Chevy Blazer? Well, this was built for the United States military. This replaced the old Dodge trucks that were used throughout the 70s, and Chevrolet got the contract for the 1980s and into the 90s with these. They also did a version of the K10 and things like that. This K5 probably would have been used as like an officer's vehicle or getting around the base or some type of communication. Now, it had special upgrades for military use, like that 6.2-liter Detroit diesel. Every Chevrolet military truck used the same Detroit diesel V8. That was A, for reliability of parts. If one broke, you could fix it with any parts you had. And B, there were other machines on the base that would use diesel fuel. So instead of having to need two big tanks for gas and diesel, you could just have one giant diesel tank and you could fill up any machinery. One of the other things it had was actually a 24-volt battery system, which was essentially two 12-volt batteries, but this was beefed up over the civilian models. This also got bigger, beefier axles. This has blackout lights. It was a stripped-down version, never offered with air conditioning, and that diesel under the hood didn't have to comply to emissions, because when you're out on the battlefield, you don't need emissions crap gunking up your engine. So let's get back to that Detroit diesel. Well, like I said, that was the only engine available here in the military Blazer. It's non-turbo, has no emission standards, and will run forever and ever and ever. And it has ran forever and ever and ever. The gauge says 78,000 miles, but who knows if that's 100, 200, 300, or 478,000 miles. By the looks of this thing, I'm guessing the latter. Like I said, paired to it is a 4-speed automatic transmission. Nothing really too crazy there. It was a pretty standard GM 4-speed, and it did the job. Last but not least, all of the military Blazers were 4-wheel drive. You had to get out of a sticky situation, and you could do it here. What is it like to drive the military Blazer? Well, this particular one's a little bit terrifying. The rocker panels aren't rusty. They're gone. And so it's very floppy. Everything shakes and rattles. I'm a little terrified to be behind the wheel, if I'm completely honest with you. So I haven't been driving it very far, but from the feels of it, it drives like a normal K5 Blazer. You just have that lopey, lazy V8 up front, but you didn't need speed on the battlefield. You needed durability and longevity, and so that's what this was able to deliver. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about what's left of the interior. Well, in front of me, I have two giant gauges. Off to the left is my speedometer, and off to the right is my fuel. Now, speedometers of this era would usually highlight 55 miles an hour because of the national speed limit. The M1009 was actually limited to 55 miles an hour. They didn't need their military higher-ups getting into too much trouble. On the steering wheel, we do get a Chevy badge, so our military was reminded of the bow ties back home. And off to the left, we do have some warning lights, as well as our special service lights and our blackout drive lights. This was military specific and very, very cool to see. We also have our regular headlight settings. And moving out of the door, we have the crank for the window, but that's it. This was a bare bones basic vehicle. Lower on the door, you actually do get the military tag for when they would send this overseas, which is very, very cool to see. It gives the dimensions and any necessary information that a soldier might need. In the center, we do have a voltage gauge as well as our heater options, But off to the right, we have where a radio would be, but of course this wasn't optioned with one. We do, interestingly enough, have an ashtray and a warranty sticker. If you would like to pause to read it, you can, but very weird to see that. And then down on the floor, we have the 4-wheel drive settings for 2 high, neutral, 4 high, and 4 low. And then we have this really weird unscrewable thing that I'm gonna have to look up. So this is actually an intercom cap, which you would hook a military grade headset into for communications. It was just mounted under the dash, and the screw off bit was the dust cap. Very, very cool to see, and obviously only on the military K5. We don't get a center console and no cup holders, so it fails the big friggin' bottle test. And then we have the seats, which are a brown leather, which is actually kind of nice. However, it is held in by a chain because there's not enough floor left to bolt it to. A little scary, but that's okay. Speaking of seats, however, we do have back seats, so I'm gonna try to cram myself back there. So I've decided to not get in the back, mainly because of this. I don't want to go through the floor. Here's the back seats of the M1009 military Blazer. I genuinely think I might go through the floor, so I'm not going to get back there. However, I can take the keys, traditional GM key. We can come around the back here. In this era, GM would use 2 different keys, one for the ignition, one for the trunk and locks. However, on the military version, it only uses 1 key because you didn't need, your sergeant with extra keys, So once it's unlocked, this actually does roll down. Ooh, does not sound good. And then I already see a spider, but there, that is around the back. That is inside the back of the M1009. Let's roll this back up. There we go. Keep the spiders in there. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and obviously this is something else. They were all finished in this green and painted in different camouflage color schemes, which is pretty nice. On the outside, besides the blackout lights, it's relatively standard K5 Blazer, and that's pretty much it. With all that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. Why the heck did I drive this even though I'm terrified? Well, the only reason is the fact that this is a piece of history. These were ordered by the US government throughout the 1980s and into the early 1990s. So if you served in our military during that time, you probably dealt with these quite a bit, or their K-10 pickup truck counterparts. They were used as troop transports, they were built into ambulance. Whatever the military needed to do, these were ready to do that job. Yes, the car I'm driving right now is worse for wear, and the reason I'm driving it is actually that it's getting sent to auction here soon. And as a matter of fact, its days are probably relatively numbered. This is an unsafe, unwell piece of machinery. This should never see the road again, hence why I've been driving it in a giant parking lot. But this truck has lived a hard life. As a military vehicle, it was purchased from a military auction by Napleton Subaru to use as a plow truck to clear out their dealership lots during the snow. So it went from military usage to only in the harshest, coldest conditions one could think of. This truck didn't get the luxury of taking a group of teenagers to prom. This truck was never washed and waxed on the weekends. This truck has never seen a Cars and Coffee. This truck has only seen the most brutal, the most gritty, the most demanding environment, and yet it's still running. It's still here to tell the tale. There's a Japanese tradition called kintsugi. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but basically, if a ceramic pot or bowl breaks, you fix it with gold leaf because you don't try to hide the blemishes. The blemishes actually make the pottery more beautiful. It has these beautiful golden shapes. I'll show some images here. That's how I feel about this truck. Every blemish, every dent, scratch, and rust hole is a story. This truck has seen vile and inhumane conditions. This truck has been there when soldiers and people alike needed it to do the job. This truck is strong. This truck is brilliant. And now, finally, this truck is going to get its well-deserved rest. Its end of days are near, and it has worked very, very hard every single day. That Detroit diesel pumping away in the background, helping you, helping me, helping everyone around it accomplish a task. Maybe it hasn't seen the inside of a car wash, but it's seen the inside of an exclusion zone. It's seen smiling faces as it rolls up because they know that someone's here to help. That's what I think is so cool about this. That's why I wanted to drive this. Not because it's a falling apart K5 Blazer, but because it has a story, because it has a legacy, because this is the ultimate symbol of hope and the American spirit. When the going gets tough, the tough get going. And this K5 has never stopped going, possibly until now. So if anything else, I'm doing my due diligence to give the M1009 its day in the sun. A proper goodbye, a proper shaking of the hand for what this was able to accomplish. One of my favorite things in the world is when machines like cars and planes come together for the better good. I'm happy for your Jeep Wrangler that gets you to Starbucks. I am. You deserve that. But when I hear stories like the Bosnian Camaro or the F4 Phantom that went supersonic across the United States to deliver a heart transplant, those are the stories that need sharing. And this K5 Blazer deserves its story to be shared. And while the final chapter is written with this video, I tip my cap to the engineers that made it possible, to the people that made it possible, and to the people that served our country with this. Thank you for your service. And thank you, M1009. I think you finally deserve the civilian Blazer name. You blazed a trail that we won't ever forget. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you, Napleton Subaru, for letting me give your plow truck a send-off. This truck is stronger than I ever thought, and I respect it for that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. No outro song here today. We're ending in silence to honor not only the M1009, but those that drove it. Thank you. Thank you.